Underwear, it's the first thing we put on and the last thing we take off. We don't often talk about it, do we? But this hidden layer of clothing tells a massive story. It's a story about what society expects from women. It's about health, about freedom, and about how women see themselves. From simple bits of cloth to complicated structures of whalebone and lace, the journey of women's underwear is fascinating. It's not just about fashion, it's about the massive shifts in women's lives over thousands of years. Let's pull back the curtain and have a proper look at what's been going on underneath it all. Let's go way back, think ancient Egypt or Rome. What did women wear under their tunics and togas? Well, it was pretty simple, really. Most women wore a loincloth, a basic piece of linen wrapped around their hips. It was practical. It was there for hygiene. In ancient Rome, some women also wore a band of cloth around their chest, a bit like a modern bandeau top. They called it a strophium or mamillara. It was mainly for support during sports. There wasn't this big fuss about creating a certain shape. It was all about function. Fast forward to the Middle Ages and things hadn't changed all that much, to be honest. Women wore a simple linen shift or chemise under their heavy woolen dresses. This was a long, loose-fitting garment, a bit like a nightie. It was their main piece of underwear. It protected their expensive outer clothes from sweat and body oils. It was easy to wash, which was a good thing because washing those big, heavy dresses was a nightmare. Again, it was all about being practical. The idea of underwear as something to shape the body hadn't really taken hold just yet. But as we move towards the Renaissance, you start to see little changes. The chemise was still there, but sometimes it was made from finer fabrics. It might have a bit of embroidery on the collar or cuffs peeking out from the main dress. This was the first hint that underwear could be more than just a practical layer. It could be a little bit decorative, a subtle sign of wealth. But the biggest changes were still to come. A new garment was on the horizon, one that would literally shape women for centuries. The corset was about to make its grand entrance. Then came the corset. This one piece of clothing completely changed the game. It first appeared in the 16th century, and it wasn't messing about. The goal was to create a very specific silhouette. We're talking about a tiny waist, a flat stomach, and a chest that was pushed up and out. Early corsets were incredibly rigid. They were made with stiff materials like wood, iron, or whalebone, sewn into channels in the fabric. This wasn't about comfort, it was about creating an ideal shape, the shape that society and men found beautiful at the time. Wearing a corset was a daily ritual for many women, from the aristocracy right down to the middle classes. Girls started wearing them from a young age to train their bodies into the correct posture and shape. It was a long and often painful process. Lacing them up required help, usually from a mother or a maid, pulling the laces tighter and tighter. Imagine trying to breathe properly with your ribs being squeezed like that. It was restrictive, making it hard to bend, sit, or do any kind of physical work. It became a symbol of a woman's social status. If you wore a tight corset, it meant you didn't have to do manual labor. Over the centuries, the ideal shape kept changing, and the corset changed with it. In the 18th century, it created a conical torso. By the Victorian era, in the 19th century, it was all about that extreme hourglass figure. The S-bend corset came into fashion, pushing the hips back and the bust forward. Doctors started to speak out. They warned that these contraptions were bad for women's health. They said corsets were displacing internal organs, weakening back muscles and causing breathing problems. But the pull of fashion was stronger than medical advice for a very long time. So why did women put up with it for so long? It's complicated. For many, it was just what was expected. It was the key to being seen as beautiful, respectable, and fashionable. A woman without a corset was considered loose, both in her morals and her shape. It was deeply tied to ideas of femininity and propriety. The corset wasn't just an undergarment, it was a powerful tool of social control. It literally shaped women's bodies to fit into the narrow ideals of the time. It was a cage made of fabric and bone, and breaking free would take a revolution. Change was coming, though. By the early 20th century, women's lives were transforming. They were becoming more active. They were campaigning for the right to vote. They were playing sports like tennis and cycling. They were even starting to go to work outside the home, especially during the First World War. Suddenly, being squeezed into a rigid corset just didn't make sense anymore. It was impractical. It was holding them back. Women needed to move, to breathe, to be free. The restrictive corset was starting to look like a symbol of an old, outdated world. Fashion designers started to listen. People like Paul Poiret in Paris began designing looser, more flowing dresses that didn't require a tiny, cinched waist. This new style was a massive relief, but women still needed some support underneath. This is where the modern bra comes in. While there were earlier patents for breast supporters, it was a New York socialite named Mary Phelps Jacob who got the credit for the first modern bra in 1914. She was fed up with her corset poking through her new sheer dress, so she took 2 silk handkerchiefs and some pink ribbon and stitched them together. Her invention was a game changer. It was lightweight, it was comfortable, it separated and supported the breasts without squeezing the whole torso. She called it the backless brassiere. It was the perfect undergarment for the new, more natural clothing styles. When the United States entered the First World War, the government asked women to stop buying corsets to save metal for the war effort. This was the final nail in the coffin for the old-style corset. Women donated their corsets and embraced the bra. It felt like a symbol of liberation. At the same time, other bits of underwear were changing too. Long, bulky drawers were replaced by shorter, more fitted knickers or panties. These new undergarments were made from lighter fabrics like silk and rayon. They were easier to move in and fitted better under the new, shorter hemlines of the 1920s. For the first time in centuries, women's underwear was designed with a bit of comfort and practicality in mind. It was a real turning point, reflecting the new freedoms and roles that women were taking on in society. A revolution had happened in the underwear drawer. So, where are we today in 2025? Walk into any underwear department and what do you see? Choice. So much choice. You've got bras in every imaginable style, push-up t-shirt, bralette, sports bra. You've got knickers in all sorts of cuts, briefs, bikinis, thongs, boy shorts. The range of fabrics is incredible too, from soft cotton and breathable bamboo to delicate lace and high-tech microfiber. This massive variety tells you something really important. There is no longer one single ideal shape that women are expected to fit into. The power has shifted. The biggest change is the focus on comfort. For so many women today, how underwear feels is just as important, if not more important, than how it looks. We lead busy, active lives. We need underwear that can keep up with us, whether we're at the office, in the gym, or just relaxing at home. The rise of the soft, wireless bralette and comfortable seamless knickers shows this perfectly. It's a complete rejection of the pain and restriction of the corset. It's about women choosing to feel good in their own skin on their own terms. Of course, underwear can still be about looking and feeling sexy. Lingerie is a huge industry, but even here there's a difference. Today, it's more about a woman choosing to wear something beautiful for herself, to feel confident and empowered. It's less about shaping her body to please someone else's idea of beauty. Brands are also becoming much more inclusive. They are using models of all different shapes, sizes, and skin tones. This sends a powerful message that everybody is a good body. It's a world away from the single, narrow ideal of the Victorian era. From a simple loincloth to the modern bralette, the evolution of women's underwear is a story of liberation. It tracks women's journey from being restricted and shaped by society to demanding comfort, choice, and freedom. The contents of our underwear drawers reflect the progress we've made. The fact that we can choose a comfy cotton brief one day and a lacy thong the next is a small but significant freedom. It shows that today, the person who has the final say on what a woman wears under her clothes is the woman herself. And that's a massive change.